$92 per person. Nope, it's not some fancy financial stat. It's how much dough a typical American spends on average for Halloween. If this doesn't prove to you how much of a big deal Halloween is in the US, the fact that it's the second largest commercial holiday in the country will. Decorations, costumes, and candies play such a big role in preparations that in 2022, Americans broke the record by spending $10.6 billion shopping for Halloween stuff. When it comes to the UK, however, decorations doesn't really play a big part in Halloween celebrations. Although, today's Halloween customs are thought to have been influenced by the traditions and beliefs of those Celtic lands. The holiday isn't as popular there as it is in the US. People there mostly view it to be something for kids. You see, even from the beginning of September, you can spot a lot of pumpkins everywhere in the US, like on people's porches, in windows, at stores, and in grocery stores. But in the UK, most of the time, you can see them in the produce section of the grocery stores. The same thing goes for corn mazes as well. They're almost impossible to find in the UK. Whereas in America, getting intentionally lost in a maze of corn is one of the most common fall activities. Another very US thing is that every year as October begins, several US television networks start a spooktacular Halloween movie countdown. And depending on the channel's general vibe, there's usually a selection of spooky to scary movies. The family-friendly selections include cult classics as Hocus Pocus or The Haunted Mansion. And the horror-inducing lists usually have movies like Friday the 13th or any or all of the Scream movies. To be fair, nothing is stopping you from watching these movies yourself in the UK. But you probably won't be able to turn on the television at any point in October and be able to take part in a nationwide Halloween movie marathon. Well, there's no talking about Halloween without the costumes. Here's a fun fact. The custom of wearing costumes in North America was actually first recorded in 1911. And it was only in the 1930s that mass production of Halloween costumes for sale in stores began. But as of today, in the US, wearing a costume no matter what age you are is a non-negotiable of celebrating this chilling holiday. So much so that in 2021, Americans spent close to $3.3 billion on costumes. When kids go trick-or-treating, any costume works just fine, even if they aren't necessarily Halloween-y. Princess or superhero costumes are good examples of that. On the other hand, in the UK, they stick to the more traditional horror-inspired ghost, vampire, and zombie type of costumes. By the way, if you're ever thinking about spending Halloween in Dublin in the state of Georgia in America, you should know that for those aged 16 and over, it's considered illegal to wear any type of costume that covers your face. Sunglasses, hoods, and anything else that covers your face are also prohibited. So make sure you choose your costume wisely. But if these costume restrictions don't work for you, head to Derry, aka the second largest city in Northern Ireland, because it might be a good option to travel to for Halloween. People there celebrate this holiday with a 4-day-long event called the Banks of the Foyle Carnival. The festivities include a haunted house, a parade, and more. In 2015, it was even named the best place in the world to celebrate Halloween. The Village Halloween Parade, which takes place in New York City every year and draws more than 2 million spectators, might be the US equivalent of that. In the US, the Halloween spirit seems to possess everything from breakfast cereal to ketchup. Themed snacks and drinks are everywhere. But in the UK, you can count yourself lucky to find a few pumpkin-shaped cookies. Speaking of which, there are quite a few differences between these countries when it comes to yummy treats as well. The most popular treat options in the US include tiny Snickers, Reese's Pieces, and peanut butter cups, Skittles, and like it or not, candy corn. But if any of these are your favorite, sorry to inform you that you might not be able to find them in UK stores easily. But that doesn't mean you won't be able to have a sweet feast. The British people favor a different variety of candies, produced by domestic brands such as the fun-sized versions of Cadbury chocolate bars and McVitie's Jaffa Cake bars. In Ireland, by the way, there's a traditional Halloween bread known as barmbrack, or simply as brack. This sweet loaf is typically crafted with a blend of dark and golden raisins and holds a special surprise. a hidden toy, or a ring. It's believed that the person who discovers this hidden item will be blessed with good fortune in the year ahead. And that brings us to the most common Halloween activity people do during the day. Trick-or-treating is such a big deal in the US that even families who will stay inside during that day prepare various kinds of candies and chocolates beforehand. Then, all through the day, cute little monsters go knocking on every door, screaming trick or treat. They fill their bags and return home to a sweet feast. But actually, in certain parts of the US, such as St. Louis, Missouri or Des Moines, Iowa, it's not so easy to get a treat just like that. Kids trick-or-treating in these places have to earn it by performing a joke or a riddle. By the way, the interjection trick-or-treat seems to have arisen in central Canada first, only to spread into the United States later in the 1930s. And here's a fun fact. Initially, it was often found in variant forms, such as tricks or treats, or treat up or tricks. On the other hand, in Scotland and Ireland, in addition to trick-or-treating, they continue the ancient tradition of guising. And the thing is, it's what trick-or-treating actually originated from. You see, Halloween has its roots in the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, which is usually celebrated from October 31st to November 1st to mark the beginning of winter. Those who celebrated the festival believed that the barriers between the physical world and the spirit world broke down during this night, allowing supernatural beings to roam the earth. That is why Celts often prepared offerings to appease the otherworldly beings and left them outside their villages. It was also expected that their ancestors might cross over during this time as well, and Celts would dress as animals and monsters to drive away phantom visitors. As the Middle Ages progressed, bonfires started to become a part of the Samhain festival. In addition, carved turnips or potatoes called jack-o'-lanterns, attached by strings to sticks and embedded with coal, began to appear. It was only by the 19th century when Irish immigrants brought this tradition to America that it became an integral part of Halloween festivities. And there they used what they could find, pumpkins and fruit native to America. Activities similar to what we know as trick-or-treating today were also part of these celebrations during medieval times. Back then, this tradition was known as mumming or guising. It involved going door to door in costume and performing short scenes or parts of plays in exchange for food or drink. By the 15th century, in certain parts of Britain, southern Germany, and Austria, mumming evolved into souling. Poor people would visit the houses of wealthier families and receive pastries called soul cakes in exchange for a promise to pray for the souls of the homeowner's relatives who passed away. What's truly fascinating is the fact that despite the concept of trick-or-treating originating in Ireland, Scotland, and Britain in the forms I just mentioned, the use of the term trick-or-treat at the doors of homeowners was not common until the 1980s. Its popularization was partly due to the release of the film E.T., and even then it was still not a welcomed phrase. In Ireland, for example, before the phrase trick-or-treat became common in the 2000s, kids would say, "help the Halloween party" instead.